Hello, hello. Welcome to day 1536 of Connecting the Thoughts. Quote for today is Shadows reflect differently in the spotlight. Shadows reflect differently in the spotlight. And what does this even mean? I will get in conversation with this with my partner in conversation, Nicola. Hey, how are you?
Good afternoon. I'm
Good
good, thank you.
afternoon. Lovely. So this is so Nicola. When I come up with these quotes of mine, it's usually because I'm going through something or there's a conversation that I've had with someone. And interestingly, this one came up. I think either because of the whole spotlight on the full moon last evening, and the fact that shadows were definitely behaving differently. They were behaving differently, and I was in conversation with another friend earlier today, and he said, is it behavior or is it reflection? That got me thinking. So it was literally an evolution of the quote itself. What came to your mind when I shared this quote with you?
Well, I didn't think about reflection as such. What I was thinking about was more to do with spotlight on who or whom or from where or from whom or what, and the fact that if you shine a spotlight on people, do you actually get a shadow? Because it's not the same as refraction of light, different from reflection of light, and different from diffused light.
Yep. Yep. So many ways of
when
looking at it.
when you actually have a shadow of the sun, or a moon, or the moon, so moon shadow from the sun. When are the shadows the longest? When are they the shortest? What
Hmm.
time of day? And so that's where I was kind of coming from. And then also is like, is it an ominous shadow from the spotlight? Which it
Hmm.
can be. And it can also
True.
be a very positive. But often people will talk about being under the ominous threat of war,
Hmm.
the ominous shadow of war, because it's imminent. And then you've got things like, how close is the shadow? How
Hmm.
far away is the shadow? And I think it was Winnie the Pooh. Do you know Winnie the Pooh?
Yes, I do.
Well, not everybody knows Winnie the Pooh. So did you ever play Pooh Sticks?
No, that I haven't done.
All right, Pooh Sticks is where you on a bridge over a running stream and you drop little twigs in, and then you run to the other side of the bridge to see the Pooh Stick come through from the other side of the bridge. So again, there's shadows involved with that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think isn't the Winnie the Pooh where there's a poem about Christopher Robin and he's going down along the pavement and he's jumping on the squares and try not to touch the cracks because the big bear's shadow is behind waiting to pounce if he stands on the pavement cracks.
Hmm.
And then you often see shadows being used as menacing because of the way the shadow is when you have someone looking vulnerable in front of them. And then when you actually see the actual picture, the reality, the person is not going to harm whoever's in front of them. They're actually going to save them from something else. So
It's
shadows
different.
from natural light or from man-made light. That that's it in a nutshell.
That's
That's
in a
crazy.
nutshell. That's a big nutshell.
Well, there's also there's another part of it. There's the covert and secretness
Hmm.
of shadows.
Also, the shadow self shadow. The shadow self that we always like to suppress and keep aside and not want to bring to the spotlight. And I think that's where I was actually taking this, or that's where this was actually coming from, wherein when you put the spotlight and you make a conscious effort to connect with your shadow self, it reflects differently. Hmm.
Yeah, because there's again that kind of ties back in with talking about Freud and talking about Eric Berne and adults and adaptive children and controlling parents, etc. Is like the egotistical self or the submissive suppressed self, because there's those two parts as well, which are shadows of how we present ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're seeing a very interesting power struggle going on with Elon Musk and Donald Trump in the media, if you want to reflect in that.
Right.
But it's also quite interesting to see two huge egos, one very childish,
Yes.
both very arrogant
True.
and used to being in the spotlight
Hmm.
and taking the spotlight. But when the shadow of the spotlight isn't reflected as they wish, then the ego can leap forward, and then they don't realize they're putting their foot in everything.
Or their foot in their mouth.
Well, yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, but when you have somebody who's used to being in the spotlight and misuses it and abuses it, rather than someone like Mo Farah, who's just expressed this week about, and he's come out from under the shadow of his being trafficked. So a man in the spotlight for his sporting achievements,
Yes.
and has suppressed this horror story of his life from the age of 8 or 9. He's come out from the shadow of that
Yes.
in the spotlight, which could threaten or may have threatened his British citizenship. So that's another part of it. What do you suppress, which can make you regress? And how do you deal with the tides? Going back to yesterday.
Going back to yesterday, yes.
And I found my word as soon as we closed, the ebbing tide. So how do you deal with something that is so destructive? But if you don't bring it out into the light, which for you and me is mostly going to be natural light or electric light rather than spotlight, then you might disintegrate. So again, comes back to yesterday with allowing yourself, giving yourself the permission and space to be safe.
True. And it's beautiful because when I started out this 5-day challenge, I wasn't thinking of how these conversations would weave through the week, with each speaker. Because when I would do these lives every day, it would just be, focus on the quote, speak, present, move on to the next day. The next day, something new comes up and I present. But it's beautiful because even with the last speaker, it was like a conversation through the entire week. Like we were carrying forward thoughts from the day before and moving forward. Yeah, connecting. And that's what I call it, connecting the thoughts. It's lovely, beautiful, blessed.
Yeah, it's but and again, what it means to you can be completely different to what it means to me, and that again comes back to language, and it again comes back to culture and life experiences and what kind of exposures we've had, and then to what spotlight means to us.
So I'm going to actually ask you about the other word. It's not what spotlight means to us. Could be
Shadows.
anything. Yes, I want to ask you about what shadow self means to you when I say, understanding your shadow self.
Well, that's why I was talking about shadows earlier. What is a shadow, and how do you perceive your shadow? Do you acknowledge your shadow? Do you see your shadow, or do you jump on the paving stones to avoid the cracks? Shadow self. I think again we haven't got time, but prism brain mapping. In the prism brain mapping, you have 3 maps, and your underlying map is who you are. The way you tend to present yourself. Then you have another map, the consistent map, and then the adaptive map, which you know a little bit about.
Yes.
But with me, I don't tend to have a shadow self. I tend to be what you see is what you get.
True. Yes.
So again,
filters.
Well, no, I have. Now, excuse me, being personal again. That's quite interesting and very interesting. I do have filters.
I didn't mean it that way. I didn't mean it in the wrong way. I meant what what I meant by no filters was more like what you see is what you get. It's not about masks, you know. I think I should have used the word masks,
Well, I
perhaps.
get.
I'm still a little scared to use my words now around you.
No, it's just interesting because it's being pedantic, being very specific with the words. But again, sometimes when we use words, we don't necessarily know how they've been received unless we go like,
Exactly.
see the person go like,
Yeah.
like,
So
Arsalan's just posted something. He said, "You're a constant support," and I'm thinking like, constant as in irritating, constant as in supportive, constant as in positive, constant as. What do you mean by constant?
he means constant. Don't
You,
look for
you're there.
fear.
You
You're
don't
there.
dispute. You there.
Yes. Yes.
You're a support, like a
Exactly.
concrete post.
Yes. Yes. Unshakable.
Yeah, so that, but again, you can see how it can be misinterpreted. So, like
Right.
shadow self,
Mm.
I am a shadow of myself.
Hmm.
So some people will say to people who've lost a lot of weight, and that's another thing. Do we compliment people on losing weight because we don't know why they've lost weight? Is it to do with health or is it to do with a change in lifestyle exercise?
Correct.
You're a shadow of your former self. Well,
Hmm.
excuse me. Like,
What do you mean? What do you
be
mean
like,
by that?
thank you very much. It's very interesting because again being a shadow is reflective of who you are, or a
Mm-hmm.
shadow is not reflective of who you are. How do
Right.
you present yourself? Do you present
Right.
yourself one way when you're standing on a stage in the middle of a TEDx talk, and differently when you're standing in the queue at Etisalat to pay the bill?
Hmm.
Are you as dynamic and as demonstrative, or are you more subdued and easily pressurized into being quiet and be quiet
Yeah.
and wait your turn? Because we
Correct.
have different behaviors in different
Yes.
places.
We definitely do. Definitely do.
So it's interesting how we've come from completely different perspectives, different
Hmm.
shadows,
Hmm. Different
different
shadows.
shadows, and different kinds of reflection. Maybe it's because I'm older than you.
Don't think so. It's. I mean, I'm actually not going to say anything now. Don't want to take
I
that.
mean, based on experience.
Experience. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Dale is having a laugh. He says, "My shadow fetches my mail." Joking. He also adds to say, "We all have a dark side that the world might not accept." Exactly. So when I was talking of shadow self and shadow work, what I meant was those parts of us that we suppress and hide and kind of know they exist, but we kind of want to put them away because we've been told that's a bad attribute to have. For instance, jealousy. Everybody has a streak of jealousy in them, but then we've been told that it's wrong. Perfect. We've got Mark on board. Thank you, Mark, for joining us. Jealousy is again something that we have been told growing up. It's a bad thing. You shouldn't do it, blah, blah, blah. So we push it aside. We know it's there within us, but we push it aside as not acceptable behavior. That becomes your shadow self. That becomes a part of your shadow. Mark says, "I believe our shadows are always reflective of who we are. We just don't see them as such." Thank you,
Yesterday,
Mark.
seeing and looking, day before as well. Yeah.
Yes. So Mark is an amazing coach. He speaks and is very, very educated on the subject of shadow work. And in fact, he was the one I had a conversation with, and he helped me tweak my quote for me today. Thank you, Mark.
All right. So, you're making me think about shadow puppets and using puppets for dealing with for working with survivors of different kinds of abuse. And again, we come back to Mo Farah and the trafficking and the different kind of experiences, the life experiences, and Punch and Judy shows, or not so much they're puppets, as opposed to shadow puppets, or using hands to make shadows. And we all used to play with making shadows. It's very interesting. And again, you've got like the religious kind of aspects of it, the spirituality aspects of it, and culture. I think people who are particularly in the spotlight, you'll find that some of them, if you take like film stars and people like that, who they are in a role is nothing to do with their shadow self, or they
No.
may draw on the shadow self in order to have the extrovert self. But extrovert and introvert, again, colloquial language or psychological language.
Do agree. So, what should be our affirmation for today?
I don't know. I think we've got about 6.
What if we wrote it as I am reflecting? Because sometimes that's what it takes to reflect upon what has been discussed, what has come to the surface, and what we can take from what has been discussed and come to the surface moving forward.
That's interesting, because I'm thinking more about refraction of light, about light hitting and bouncing back, rather than reflecting. So if you think about when light hits a window, a pane of glass or something like that, then the rainbow kind of colors refract back out. And so that could be extremely energizing, because it's not taking, but it's sharing. And that's kind of comes back to Pam Gregory and giving out light and love. So maybe I am reflecting, and you are reflecting, and I'm refracting.
So let's give people an option, whatever they would like to. So I am reflecting, or I am refracting, whatever speaks to you. And Dale adds to say, some things I hide because I don't want to hurt someone unintentionally. Exactly. So there's some parts of us that we hide away because we don't want to hurt others unintentionally, and that's fair enough too. But the thing is to consider, are you hurting yourself in the process?
Yes.
Did I just take your words?
No. It's the same track, and it links back in with yesterday and with the day before. It's like sometimes if we contain something, we then eat ourselves up, and the other person is never aware. It's like the whole thing about, is hate the opposite of love? No, it is not. Hate eats us up. It doesn't do anything to the person that we hate or loathe or detest, and that we are the ones that suffer because it doesn't make any difference to them. So sometimes, again, it depends on the level of hurt. Sometimes the pain needs to be gone through in order to grow. You have to rip the plaster off sometimes.
Yes, you do. And one of my programs that helps you rip the plaster off is my 21-day group coaching program. It's to build habits of success. It's called Reset for Success. I have included the link in the description. Do enroll, do register, put in your details to avail the early bird discounts. If you haven't subscribed already, subscribe to the channel, give the video a like. If it's spoken to you, put in your affirmation of choice, because today we gave you 2 to reflect and refract on. And thank you, Nicola, for joining me. And until tomorrow, keep smiling, keep shining.
Can I just say one quick thing?
Oh, please, yes.
Mention to people that you put 3 links in from yesterday?
Yes.
Dr. Russell Razak and Eric Byrne and prismbrainmapping.com in yesterday's. Yeah.
Yes, I've included the links that we spoke about yesterday. It's on the description and also as a comment that I've pinned to the top. So please go ahead and listen to those videos, visit those sites, and I will catch up with you tomorrow. Thank you for joining me. And until tomorrow, keep smiling, keep shining, stay safe, and thank you for connecting the thoughts with me. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Lovely to have some questions and visitors.
Yes. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.